Ladies and gents, welcome back to the wacky, weird world of Formula One. It's been one hell of a season, hasn't it? I don't know where to start. Well, okay, before we get into the whole Rubik's Cube of Formula One of 2026, which is obviously great for us as well. Of course it is. We're the real winners here. But first of all, lads, for the Canadian Grand Prix, we are going to be live all weekend long on YouTube. So if you're out and about, you're out in your car, if you're working and you don't have time to watch the Formula One, if you don't have access, unfortunately a lot of people don't, to the Formula One on TV, well, I hope I can help. Just go to YouTube, look for the Peter Walsh Show, and I'll be live for all the practices, the sprint qualifying, the qualifying for the Grand Prix, the sprint race, and of course the Grand Prix itself. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to show you any of the footage. Now, I'm sure you can understand, YouTube, I wouldn't say they're anal. Look, in fairness, you've got like Sky Sports out there. They're paying for this coverage for themselves. They've got their own camera crews down there. So, all of a sudden then some jerk off like me or some other jerk off out in the world capturing their footage, you can understand they don't want that. So YouTube, they do the fair thing. They don't want people doing that. So what we'll do, what we've got is pretty good though. We've got live telemetry. So you'll actually be able to see in real time, you'll be able to see all the cars on the track, see them literally go around the track in real time. You'll be able to identify which car. We've got all the live stream of the lap times, the sectors. So we've got quite a lot of telemetry going on. And of course, I'll be jumping on as well. I'll be jumping on just mentioning a couple of things. But most important, lads, what I want to do for you is, I know it can be incredibly frustrating when people start jumping in, okay? So I'm going to try and be very, very, what's the word? Cautious. As in, if there's a big moment where there's a big overtake, I'm going to be shutting my mouth. And I'm going to just let you listen to the commentary. Because we do have access to the commentary with David Coulthard and those guys, okay? I think Julian Palmer, they're not bad. They're okay. They're pretty good. At least we have some commentary, and I'll be jumping in every now and then. But most importantly, I'll be making sure that you won't miss anything. Now, speaking of not missing anything, well, I feel like I'm missing out on everything here, lads, in this 2026 season. I'm even in the last few years, I'm certainly not great with the predictions, as if you've been watching for years, I'm always getting them wrong. I get them right every now and then. But this year, forget it, man. It's over. There's no point of even trying to do predictions. I'll still do it, but don't listen to mine. Literally toss a coin. Which, at the same time, this is great for us. This is fantastic. We don't know what's going to happen. And this year, I can't tell you, ladies and gents, another year of Formula One that this has ever happened where there's been so many rule changes, number one. But second of all, even when they had that break because of the whole Iran war, and, it was a chance for a lot of teams to sit down, gather the information, go through it, process a lot of what's going on, and then just re-engage, reactivate, and redeem themselves, if anything. And it's hard to get a pulse on this year. Now, I've even been saying on my last few episodes that even though it's been incredibly unpredictable, at the same time, which makes it even worse, it has been predictable in a way because Mercedes have won the last 4 rounds out of 4. They have a 100% batting record here. They're knocking us out of the park at the moment. So, do you get where I'm coming from here? In fact, they go to Canada this weekend. They've been really, really good at Canada for the last couple of years. Chances are their car's in such a good place here. They're probably going to win again. Hopefully not. And especially now, here's where the spanner's in the works. Canada, a lot of the time, brings rain. A lot of the time. And this is the real upset that could happen this weekend, lads. So I wouldn't be saying, well, it's guaranteed for Mercedes. I wouldn't be going that far. because you just don't know. It's happened so many times, lads, where all of a sudden it's a bone-dry track, perfect blue skies, not a cloud in the sky, and then 40 minutes later, boom, the rain comes. And what's wonderful and so cool is that Canada is the type of place, not every time, it's the type of track that you'll have the shower. And these are the worst conditions, ladies and gents. And trust me, from an ex-racing driver, believe me, a driver either wants bone dry or absolutely wet. Those greasy conditions, they can be so tricky. Now, I did love the greasy conditions. I did prefer either full wet or full dry, no question. Well, full wet was my favorite. But then there's some drivers who actually do prefer the greasy conditions than the dry and wet, right? And I mean, they are tricky because 1 minute you're on the perfect racing line, but if you get 1 inch off the racing line in the greasy conditions and you're on slicks, you could go straight into the tire wall or the concrete wall. So like there was for me there was an adrenaline rush with that too, don't get me wrong, but you have to be very cautious too on high alert. So it is very tough. So that's the cool thing about Canada. And I suppose this is where Formula 1 does become quite fascinating, because a lot of the media right now are desperately trying to create certainty. And I understand that. They don't know where to go. They don't know, okay, if I write this headline, am I going to look like a fool in a couple of weeks? And I do try and avoid that as much as I can, lads, as much as I think that Mercedes could dominate next weekend. I'm not playing it safe. I'm just trying to play it real, because, again, like I said about the rain, that could come at Canada and throw a complete spanner in the works. So, but you do see a lot of people, the media, that they're going on, oh, Kimi Antonelli, he's the future. Mercedes, they're back. Well, I'll pretty much agree on that one for now. McLaren are failing. Ferrari, they got it right. Red Bull recovered. Williams disaster. Alpine resurgence. I mean, everybody wants a clean storyline. I get it. I do. But Formula 1 is rarely clean. It's rarely clean. And I suppose not the dangerous thing about Formula 1, but the concern about Formula 1 is that people always overreact to the current snapshot. Always. It always has been, always will be. One race changes everything emotionally. One podium changes the narrative. One upgrade can change the mood. One crash can change the public perception. And then suddenly everybody forgets what happened maybe 3 weeks ago. And that's why this year it's kind of mentally exhausting to analyze, because the ground underneath the championship, it kind of keeps shifting, except for the Mercedes for now. But then you take McLaren, like last year they looked like the future. They were just so smooth, right? Now, I know the drivers did make some mistakes, but I suppose I'm talking like the team, the backbone of McLaren, the team itself. Everything clicked, and now they needed to rely on the drivers, but everything did click. The aerodynamics, the tyre management, the driver pairing was quite good. The pit wall decisions were a little shaky every now and then, but solid. Momentum, they had the confidence. I mean, these guys, they wrapped up the team's championship with 6 rounds to go. We're talking about the Constructors' Championship. Who does that? Honestly, lads, that is such a hard thing to do. I mean, Thanos with his glove, with the 6 stones built into the glove, he'd have a tough time trying to take these guys down. That's almost untouchable bit of land here, lads. I mean, that's pure domination. Now, we have seen teams over the years do this type of scenario, but you've got to be on your A game, ladies and gents. And when you actually study the races carefully, the raw pace is still there underneath the surface for McLaren. But then again, you see, I look back on I'm only judging. You see, here I go. I'm on about the last weekend. They were so good in the sprint, but then they were nowhere in the race. But my mind just drifted back to the sprint. But then before that, they were nowhere. You see, even I've just on them about a minute ago. Everybody's looking for a solid ground here. Even I'm sort of looking for that solid ground. Then I check in on myself. I'm like, no, Peter, what are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going batshit crazy here, lads. I just can't figure this out. Formula One isn't just about the raw speed, it's about synchronization. That's what this comes down to. A team that can have the fastest car and still lose championships if the rhythm isn't there. It's all well and good putting the car on qualifying, on pole position in qualifying, but then if you don't have the race pace, you're done. I mean, look at that only a few years ago when Verstappen was dominant. He didn't put it on pole as much as he should have. They didn't have that qualifying edge. Ferrari were really good that year, but then when it came to the race, boom, they were so good. Now, let's try and make some sense of this year so far, lads. I mean, this is probably pointless, but, you know, if we just go backwards for a second, because this is where hopefully things start to become clearer. Like, the end of 25 changed a lot, as we all know, with these new rules. Because multiple teams basically threw their current seasons into the bin early to prepare for 2026. Ferrari did, Alpine did, and it's very obvious now looking back like that Ferrari slipped badly at the end of 25. They did sacrifice lowest position since 2020, and everybody was kind of panicking. Everybody was screaming that, oh, Ferrari, they're lost again. But were they lost, or were they simply building for this? Now, they haven't outshined anybody this year yet in 26. They're looking like they've got the legs, that they might be able to throw that spanner in the works right now. Okay, Miami wasn't the best. Leclerc drops him 6th to 8th after penalties. Fred Vassar calls it mega tough. But overall, the platform underneath Ferrari suddenly looks a bit healthier, I guess, than maybe people expected. Now, I know diehard F1 Ferrari fans, I know this has been disappointing for you. You can smell almost the victory coming your way, and it just gets taken away from you. I can understand that frustration. Very tough, very tough. Meanwhile, then you've got Red Bull. Red Bull kept developing the 25 car aggressively because Verstappen was still fighting. And maybe now we're seeing the consequence. They enter 26 horrendously, as we can see. At one stage, they're down in P6 after Japan. I mean, my God. For Red Bull, that's just hang a rope around your neck, lads. And then suddenly upgrades arrive. Verstappen technically back in the fight again. Yeah, didn't have a good sprint, but then he's second on the grid for the qualifying for the race in Miami. Then all of a sudden everybody's singing Max is back. He's back, guys. He's back. Oh my God. But then he had a disaster of a race. An absolute disaster. Now, let's get back to talking about the biggest story of all. This is the only one that makes sense to me at the moment anyway. Mercedes, because, I mean, it is unbelievable what they've managed to do already as a team overall. 180 points already in 4 rounds. 70-point lead over Ferrari. 4 wins out of 4, and Antonelli sitting at the top with the Drivers' Championship with 3 wins. The youngest ever leader. Now look, people know my stance already. I'm not here to throw rose petals at people for doing their jobs. I mean, that respectfully. Antonelli, he's great. He is great. But this is Formula One. This is not participation trophy racing. This is the standard, and this is what they all need to do. And honestly, the thing that I admire about Antonelli, it's not necessarily the speed. You know, I've got to give him praise here. It's the lack of panic. Okay, the confidence. Now again, there's that little demon on my shoulder saying, "Well, that's his job." But you know, you give him that too. That he's looking very, very composed here, lads. And you can see it, you know, the shoulders, the interviews, the mistakes, the overdriving. Until he's not having that at the moment. Now, of course, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I was talking about this about Lando Norris last year, that even Oscar Piastri, that it's all well and good winning the races, but when the real pressure's coming down on top of you, when it comes down to the championship, that'll be the real deal. That'll be the real test. So we have yet to see. We're going to have to bookmark all this until we see when he's really under pressure. But hey, lads, look, they're doing a bang-up job. They're doing exactly what they need to be doing. They're getting the job done, ticking every box. Toto Wolff couldn't be happier with Kimi Antonelli at the moment, and I don't blame him. And then just back to McLaren here. It's kind of weird because McLaren, they don't look broken. I think more so they just look confused. You can tell like when a team is dead. You can see it in the driver's body language. You can see it in the team boss's body language, the engineer's body language. But the dominance from last year is, for now anyway, it's certainly gone. Now, maybe, just maybe, their advantage last year was more fragile than people realised, because Formula One is all about the tiny windows, right? The tiny aerodynamic windows, that 0.5% of a little change of the aerodynamics, and it can change the whole balance of the car. And sometimes you can lose 0.2, and then suddenly you go from dominant to third, maybe fourth, even maybe fifth. And that's how brutal motor racing can be, including Formula One and every other level, even down to karting. It's the same thing. But right now, McLaren, they feel like a team, I think, sort of searching for certainty again. And I don't blame them, because they got to such a high level last year that it's hard to ground yourself with this type of unpredictability, disaster of 2026. When I say disaster, for them, this is a bigger nosedive from the top of the skyscraper down to the ground, because the other teams, they didn't have the invincibility like they did last year. So for them, it's a tougher one. Now then, if you look at Ferrari versus Red Bull, that's quite a fascinating scenario for now. I'd love to see Red Bull and Verstappen kicking some ass here this year, lads. I'd love to see it. Hell, I'd even love to see Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc take some win races this year. That would be awesome to see, especially Ferrari. You know, I'm a major fan of Ferrari, and I've no doubt any Verstappen fans, you've got a massive lust, I'd say, for this stage for your boy Verstappen to be back on the top step of the podium. Hell, even if just a podium right now, to give some hope, some guidance, to just one more podium would just give you that little light at the end of the tunnel. You know, and Verstappen, honestly, Verstappen feels like the biggest threat, because if Red Bull truly found something with those upgrades, look out, lads. Look out, because they've got a hell of a race engineer. They've got a great racing driver. And as well, Verstappen is probably the most aggressive guy out there, apart from Alonso. Alonso wouldn't hold back on anything. And if you give guys like Alonso and Verstappen a half a sniff, they'll go for it in that corner, man. You know, and it's great to see when Verstappen when he does trust the car, he attacks corners ruthlessly. Now, they all should do it anyway. But Verstappen, he's got a bit of a flair when he uses the car. You know, he's smooth, but he's got a bit of an aggressive style to his driving style too. Now, honestly, that's not the best way to drive. Smoothness is the best way to drive. So he ain't the smoothest guy out there, but it's great to watch. Now, let's look at other guys, right? You've got Alpine. They sacrificed 2025 heavily. People were having to go off them a bit. Suddenly the car works. Pierre Gasly looks sharp. Colapinto suddenly looks revitalized. And honestly, Colapinto's been, I think, one of the sneaky stories of this year in a way. He's quite composed. He's very optimistic. Clean racing. You know, then you've got Hasser climbing too. Ollie Behrman keeps impressing. He's quite solid, lads. And then there's another driver who doesn't look overwhelmed. And that's what you want in a driver. And that's why 2026, you know, it feels strange because, you know, there is some good drivers out there. Young, talented guys, hungry guys. The old grid is kind of disappearing in a way. And that's another thing people are slowly realizing, that Formula One is you know, it changes generations in kind of real time. Now let's talk about Williams, Aston Martin. Whoa. Like, Williams has had their best season in years, 2025. podiums, momentum, confidence. And then now overweight car, missed development windows, dropped backwards badly. That's Formula 1 cruelty, ladies and gents. And one wrong technical direction and your entire operation collapses. And then don't even get me started on Aston Martin. Adrian Newey, the GOAT of aerodynamics. I can't spell. You can't pronounce words right now. What a disaster. No point. Reliability issues. Engine vibrations. Finishing in 18th. Alonso, can feel his frustration. 2-time world champion here. Like, the guy drives like a fucking killer. And that's the crazy part. The guy has still his instinct. And guys, it's not that he's in his 40s. It ain't that. The guy is sharp as a tack. He's got the fitness. He's got the skills. He's got all the talent. It's his car. But now we arrive at the biggest question of all. Have we figured out this championship yet, ladies and gents? I'm going to say it right here, right now. Out of all my 13 years of professional race car driving and karting, I've no idea. I have no idea. And for anybody at home, if you've never driven yourself, but you're a huge fan, my guess is as good as yours. Your guess is as good as mine. We're all in the same boat here. And that's really cool. That's awesome, right? I mean, you got to admit, I'd still like to have a bit of a handle on this whole thing, a bit of a pulse on the whole thing. You know, we just haven't figured it out fully. Maybe Mercedes are going to be the dominant one for the rest of the year. I mean, we have seen McLaren over the years, guys, right? Where they came from nowhere. They were at the back, the midfield, the back end. And then all of a sudden they go to Silverstone and boom, they're competing. They're on the podium. They're challenging for race wins. Maybe we'll have something like this year. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's so unpredictable that at least you could predict that something unpredictable again is going to happen here. But Mercedes are on top. Nobody fully trusts the order yet, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, guys, maybe you've got more confidence than I do here. But I think that's why Canada can become very interesting now for us, lads. I think so. Canada, it can expose truths. It can expose raw talent. You can't hide at Canada, which is a great thing. Low downforce, heavy braking. You've got to really carry that speed in. Drivers have to commit. The teams have to commit. And if Mercedes dominate there too, maybe the season will start to unfold. Maybe, like I said, lads, maybe you think it's starting to unfold already. Maybe you're not there. Maybe you're right there with me. Maybe if they go to Canada and dominate, maybe you still won't be there. I don't blame any which way you are at the moment. I really don't. Who knows what's going to happen? Now, if Antonelli wins again, does the noise become deafening? Does it? I don't know. But for now, look, I still think the championship has surprises left. I think it's got big surprises left. I hope so. No, you see, again, I'm going back on my word. I hope it does. You know? Have you ever noticed, lads, how much that I actually catch myself? I say one thing, I'm like, oh, reel yourself back in here, lad. You know, look, what we do know is, anyway, the uncertainty is great for us, lads. The popcorn. You know, I understand, my heart goes out to you if you are a diehard Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen fan, any other driver, and you're just nowhere at the moment. But hopefully it's going to turn. And we'll see this weekend at Canada, right? So, guys, we're going to wrap it up today. But for the weekend, like I said, we're going to be live. And actually, before I talk about the live, on Friday, this Friday coming, the usual podcast, we're going to do the Canadian GP preview. What to expect. That's what I normally try and do, but hey, fuck it. Throw that all out the window. Might as well. I give up. But we're going to go through anyway some more scenarios, maybe some hopefully more updated news, maybe some upgrades. We'll go through the track as well itself, find out the most important corner. But obviously as well, we're going to be on YouTube live. Practice 1, practice 2. the qualifying for the sprint race, the qualifying for the Grand Prix, and of course the Grand Prix itself. So just look for the Peter Walsh Show. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put it into the episode description here, lads, and so it'll be a straight link onto my YouTube channel. And I think we'll just keep it there for now, ladies and gents. I love you all. Thanks. Have a great week, and we'll speak to you Friday.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move, he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front, what a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter Walsh.